Hawks coach and friend of the show, Mike Fratello, was impressed with the play of friend of the show, Threet, and friend of the show, Mike Brown, off the bench for the Bulls.
Oh, hilarious. At this point, it's almost beyond just saying what episode number these people are on. But just rest assured, they are all great friends of the show.
I always like to say that Michael got to play with me for a year at North Carolina. I think it really helped him.
Spectacular player from the beginning.
You can see right away Jordan was going to be a big-time scorer.
And showed what an impact he was going to have on the league.
This is NB87, celebrating the 30-year anniversary of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls and the 1987 NBA season. Now here's your hosts, Adam Ryan and Aaron Steen.
Welcome back to another episode of NB87, mate. We're up to episode 9 in our series. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. If you're new to the show, thanks for joining us. And how are you today, Aaron?
Good, mate. Dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 da. This is the NBA on NB87.
Oh, great stuff. We're off to a flyer, mate. Well done. Before we get into the episode proper, mate, I'd love to give a quick shout out to a great fan of the show who added a review on the Australian iTunes store. His name is Ashley Rhodes. So thank you, Ashley. The headline is Simply Sublime. Good start. And it reads, been listening now since the start, and I absolutely love your passionate and sincere interviewing technique. Always brings the absolute best out of the players. Also, the banter between you and Aaron is priceless. P.S. Never apologise for shameless self-promotion. 3 thumbs up, Ash Rhodes. Now, Ash, you are a legend. Thank you very much for adding the review. It really does help. Helps people find the show and also have a quick read to know what the flow of the episodes are going to be like. Much appreciated in all sincerity.
It's an unconfirmed report that Ashley's nickname is Bitumen, Adam.
Oh, dear. I guess Ash can take that as a compliment, mate, that we've given him a nickname because we do that.
No, in all sincerity, Ash, always appreciate the feedback, mate. Thank you.
Very good indeed. Thanks again, Ash. And if you'd like to add a review, by all means, please do, and we'll certainly read it out in future episodes of the show.
NBA News, Notes and Quotes. February 14th through 28th, 1987.
52,745 fans packed into the Pontiac Silverdome. It was the largest regular season NBA crowd in history to that point, and they saw the Detroit Pistons defeat the visitors from Philadelphia, 125-107. Adrian Dantley led all scorers with 35 points. Same day, Chicago at New York in front of a bumper crowd, 19,591, saw the Bulls hold on to a 112-108 win, and they improved to 25-23 on the season. For the Bulls, Jordan had 33 points and 8 assists. The Oak, Charles Oakley, 20 points, 13 boards and 6 assists. Gene Banks, 15 points and 10 rebounds, so good double-double there from Gene Banks. Dave Corzine, a great game too, 14 points, 9 rebounds and 5 assists. And for New York, Ewing had 27 points and 9 boards, Gerald Wilkins 25 points, and Gerald Henderson 21 points and 17 assists. And that was a career-high assist mark for Gerald. Records had only been kept since the 83-84 season, but according to the great basketballreference.com, that was his career high.
Henderson assists the ball.
I knew you'd make the most of that.
The moment was so right, and Charles Oakley could do no wrong, wrote Bob Sakamoto. Oak scored on a 3-point play with 21 seconds remaining to propel the Bulls to their first road win since January 6th. The Bulls trailed only 55-53 at the half, despite 8 points on only 8 shots from Michael Jordan, who then dropped 13 points in a span of 3.5 minutes in the third.
Yeah, nice one.
In other news, Charles Oakley and podcast favourite Paul McKeskey were fined for their fight on February 4 in Milwaukee. That was a lot of Fs. NBA VP Rod Thorne, quote, anyone who throws a punch gets fined and anyone who connects gets fined even more, end quote.
That's hilarious. Great stuff there. I think you was probably deadpan too when you said it, but that is quite funny in retrospect. Now, there were just 3 games on the NBA slate for February the 15th. The marquee matchup was Boston's visit to the Great Western Forum to play the LA Lakers, and the Lake Show would prevail 106-103 behind Magic Johnson's 39 points. Good stuff there from the Magic Man.
As reported on the 16th of February, the Bulls added some muscle to their bench with the acquisition of Gentle Ben Poquet from the Cleveland Cavaliers, who was a target of Bulls coach Doug Collins over the past 12 months. Collins added that Poquet will be more of a scoring threat than Earl Procuritan. Hello to Earl if you're listening. Bulls assistant Gene Littles coached Poquet for 3 years as a Cav assistant and for 3 years before that as a Jazz assistant.
Nice little tidbit there about Gene Littles, mate, and his links to Poquet. And Gentle Ben Poquet, it's just a fantastic nickname that just flows together beautifully there. In Milwaukee, the Bucks enjoyed a 128-124 win for a fifth straight victory versus the New Jersey Nets. Sidney Moncrief, upcoming podcast guest, I will actually lay that out there too, mate. Look forward to that one.
Wow.
Scored 20 points and eclipsed the 10,000-point plateau in his NBA career. I've recently been in touch with Sidney and very pleased to say that he's agreed to have a chat on the show. So stay tuned to this podcast
space.
That's right. Stay tuned to this podcast space. I haven't been speaking English for too long. The Malone brothers, mate, Jeff and Moses, throwback to a comment of yours from the previous episode, I believe, combined to score 74 of Washington's 124 points at Phoenix, leading the Bullets to a 124-110 win over the Suns. Jeff had 38 points and Moses 36. So what a phenomenal performance there from the Malone brothers. In an unusual tidbit that points towards our NB90 series, the Daily Press of Virginia reported a unique recount from Navy coach, he actually wasn't, Pete Herman, re the future 1987 number one NBA draft pick David Robinson. Now, in a full court press drill, Herman looked down court and saw Robinson was walking on his hands. Quite strange. Said Herman, quote, he was celebrating having gotten an A in gymnastics. So there he was at 7'2", walking on his hands. So quite an interesting tidbit there, mate. Unusual.
As an Australian, Adam, you'll appreciate this. When looking at David Robinson at 7'2" and the physical freak that he was, I always thought to myself, if you put a guy of Robinson's body shape and athleticism into Australian rules football and they learned how to do all the fundamentals, the kicking and handballing and whatnot, he would tear the AFL to shreds.
Oh, no doubt, mate. Same day, Sacramento at Chicago in front of 13,771. They saw the Kings hold on for a 124-120 win in overtime, and the Bulls dropped to 25-24. For Chicago, Jordan had an unbelievable game. 43 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, and 4 blocks. Dave Corzine had a monster as well, 26 points and 14 rebounds. Johnny Pax, 21 points, and Charles Oakley, 15 points and 14 rebounds. And for Sacramento, Otis Thorpe, 29 points and 14 boards. Reggie Theus, 28 points and 13 assists. Derek Smith, 21 points, and Eddie Johnson, episode 41, great friend of the show. G'day, Eddie, if you're listening. I just winked. I'm not sure why he can see me do that. Had 17 points, 7 of which were in OT.
On the day that Michael Jordan turned 24, with Babe Ruth audacity, the Kings' Derek Smith called his shot. In the overtime period and the Bulls with possession, Smith had told teammate LaSalle Thompson he was going to get the steal that they needed. With Rush Street Reggie coming over to double team him, MJ held the ball out a little too long and Smith poked it away. 2 Theus free throws put the Kings up by 3, and a missed John Paxson last-second 3 gave Sacramento their 3rd straight win. Now, Adam, it's come to light in the 3 seasons that we've done this series that Derek Smith certainly had the measure of MJ in Jordan's early years. I'm sure you'd agree.
Absolutely, mate. He was fantastic, and he had some really great performances against the high-level players of that era. So a sad, sad loss that he died so young, and we were robbed as well of some of the great talent that he had, also through injuries too, towards the latter part of his career.
From a talent standpoint, one of the overlooked guys from that era.
No doubt. Very athletic too, and could certainly play the game at a high level.
Now, in the game, the Bulls jumped out to a 16-6 lead, only to struggle the rest of the game, and were down by 11 with 3 minutes left in the game. Jordan then scored 9 points in a 13-4 Bulls run that sent it to overtime. Speaking of OT, Otis Thorpe hurt the Bulls inside all game, and Thea celebrated his new 4-year, $750,000 per year contract with 28 points and 13 assists.
Nice stuff there from Rush Street Reggie. Now, mate, there were only 3 games played on MJ's birthday. Washington upset the LA Lakers 114-99 at the Great Western Forum. Moses led the Bullets with 27 points and 19 rebounds. And even with the loss, the Lakers still held on to the league's best record at 38-13.
February 18 included a piece from Bob Sakamoto about Charles Oakley's second half resurgence. Mirroring his rookie season, Oak had a sloppy start to the season with turnovers and an absent jumper to averages of 17 points, 12 rebounds and 6 assists in the second half of the month of January. It also regaled an Oakley proclamation that as long as he is on the team, that Jordan would never again lead the team in boards, which Jordan did in his rookie season. Jordan said to Oakley, and I quote, that he is a big old muscle-bound turkey that can't even fly, and I have wings and can take off like an eagle, end quote, to which Oak replied, and I quote, yeah, but the eagle ain't ever going to get the ball unless the turkey gets the rebound, end quote.
That's a fantastic bit of correspondence there between great friends, even to this day, Charles Oakley and Michael Jordan. Now, newspapers reported on this date that Julius Erving would miss 6 games due to a hairline fracture. I didn't know you could fracture your hairline. Erving was fortunate to only miss 6 games, and for what it's worth, my hairline fractured probably 15 years ago and still has not recovered. Now, also on this date, rookie Brad Doherty scored a season-high 33 points, and that's a tally he'd go on to equal twice, once in March and once in April, as he led his Cavaliers to a 129-119 win over the visiting Kings of Sacramento.
Big game from rookie Bradley Lee Doherty of Black Mountain, North Carolina.
You just wanted to get that in there, didn't you?
The newest Bull, Ben Poquette, was detailed in the Feb 19 edition of the Chicago Tribune. The 10-year veteran said it was the latest into a season that he had ever been on a winning team. He was also fast becoming a favourite of Dave Corzine after podcast favourite Dave found out he was no longer the oldest player on the team. The 86-87 Bulls were continuing to break attendance records. The 1977-78 team, who previously held the record, averaged 13,386 per game, where this season they were playing in front of an average of 14,507, just behind the 15,501 listeners to the NB87 series.
Oh, jeez. Glad to see you, mate. You've been perusing the stats on the podcast there, behind the scenes. Nice stuff.
There were reports that the Bulls were looking to raise ticket prices. Mezzanine and first and second balcony seating will only increase by $1. However, and I quote, Jack Nicholson seats, end quote, at courtside could jump from $36 up to $60.
That's a massive jump, isn't it, when you think about it?
Speaking of Jack, the upcoming game versus the LA Lakers has a special starting time of 7 p.m. to accommodate a national cable hookup on WTBS.
Good tidbits again. Now, there were 5 games on this date. Portland's Kiki Vandeweghe led all individual scorers with 35 points in his Blazers' 124-108 win at Phoenix. Moving on to the 20th of February, the Lakers took on the Chicago Bulls in the aforementioned game in front of 18,079 fans, and the Lakers had a 110-100 win. The Bulls returned to 25-25 on the season. For Chicago, Jordan had 33 points, 5 assists and 5 steals. Dave Corzine had 15 points and 8 rebounds, and Charles Oakley 15 points and 11 rebounds. For the Lakers, Magic had 28 points and 16 assists. James Worthy and Michael Thompson each had 18 points. And the captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, became the first NBA player to amass 36,000 career points, appropriately with a skyhook, to help the Lakers secure that 10-point win over the Bulls. He scored 17 points in the game and ended the day with a career total of 36,002 points.
The Lakers used a novel approach. I guess the Lakers coaching staff all enjoyed a good book back in 1987 in containing Michael Jordan. Instead of denying him the ball, they pushed him to it and then contained him once he had it. A Bulls 10-2 run in the fourth brought Chicago to within 100-98 with 1:46 left, but that's as close as they got. Each time the Bulls came close, Irvin Johnson showed why he was the leading MVP candidate this season. Aside from the Magic versus Jordan matchup, the Bulls were ably assisted by Oakley, Corzine, and Brad Sellers. In other news, Clemson's and future Bull Horace Grant, who was to be a certain first-round draft choice, was in line to become the fourth player in NCAA history to average 20 points, 10 rebounds on 66% field goal percentage with 70% free throw percentage.
Very impressive numbers, aren't they? Moving on, mate, Gerald Wilkins notched a career-high 43 points, but that was still not enough, as the New York Knicks fell to the New Jersey Nets, 111-107 at Meadowlands Arena in New Jersey. Boston had an impressive 121-113 win at San Antonio. Larry Legend scored 32 of his 34 points in the first half, if you don't mind. And at home, Seattle snapped an 8-game losing streak with a comfortable 110-93 win. The Sonics were paced by Tom Chambers' 31 points and Xavier McDaniel's 29. On the 22nd of Feb, at Philadelphia, James was most worthy, hitting a running one-hander in the lane with 3 seconds remaining in OT to secure his Lakers a 112-110 overtime win. And same day, Cleveland at Chicago in front of a good crowd, 17,102, saw the Bulls have a 102-98 win and increase their record 26-25. Jordan had another monster game with 43 points, 6 assists, 8 steals and 5 blocks. Oakley had 18 points and 8 rebounds, and Brad Sellers, 12 points and 8 rebounds. For Cleveland, Ronnie Harper, 22 points. Doherty, Phil Hubbard, and Keith Lee each had 14 points for the Cavs.
I have a task for you, Adam. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hit me.
Whilst I read the recap to the Cavaliers at Bulls game, go into Basketball Reference and see where Jordan finished in the 1987 Defensive Player of the Year.
Consider it done, mate.
Done. Anyway, back to the game. Michael Jordan missed the Bulls practice on Saturday with a bruised hand. He suffered against the Lakers, but suited up for this game. Harry Houdini would have struggled to survive the close calls that the Bulls encountered versus the Cavs, wrote Bob Sakamoto. Here's a rundown of how the Bulls almost gave away their third straight game. Dave Corzine and Jordan each missed 2 free throws in the last 3 minutes of the game. Dave Corzine hit a jumper with 47 seconds remaining. It was the Bulls' first made field goal since friend of the show, Sadale Threet, made a jumper with 9:10 to go. The Bulls at one point missed 14 straight shots. And with the Bulls up 100-98 late, that rhymed, Oakley grabbed a huge rebound, only to have all 4 teammates turn and run back up court, leaving Oak to get trapped by 2 Cavs defenders. John Paxson was able to call a timeout just before a 10-second violation was called.
I'm trying to take note of what you're saying and also check out the voting for Defensive Player of the Year. Wow. Do you want to know the update there, mate?
I would love the update.
Okay, so Michael Cooper was the Defensive Player of the Year in 1987. The award that year was hanging with Mr. Cooper. But Jordan tied 8th overall.
8th, wow.
Yeah, along with T.R. Dunn, Bill Hanslick, Derek Harper, Fat Lever, Paul Pressey, and Doc Rivers. Michael Cooper had 25 first-place votes. Second place, Alvin Roberston had 16, tied for 8. Jordan and Co. had 1 first-place vote each.
There you go. He got some recognition. Spoiler alert, we all know that he won the award the following season, but I guess it was just good to see that he actually got recognised because he had some stat-stuffing games with steals and blocks.
For what it's worth, the other players in between Michael Cooper, who won the award, and the guys who were tied for 8th, there was Alvin Robertson 2nd, Mark Eaton, great friend of the show, came 3rd, Manute Bol 4th, Kevin McHale 5th, Mo Cheek 6th, and Dennis Johnson 7th. Some great names scattered amongst that list there, mate.
And it's an unconfirmed report that Eaton and Bol both had over 1,000 blocks each that season. Prior to the game against the Cavaliers, Michael Jordan put on a clinic for 5,000 school kids, and then during the game, he put on a clinic at the expense of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I love that. Now, at Atlanta, Dominique dropped 42 points, the 6th time he'd hit for 40 or more this season, leading the Hawks to a 112-103 win over the Philadelphia 76ers. Rookie Nate McMillan had 25 assists. Now, that was the most by any NBA player in a single game to that point in the season, as hometown Seattle defeated the LA Clippers 124-112. It was also a club record for the Sonics, as Nate surpassed the previous mark of 20 held by Gus Williams and Lenny Wilkins.
Adam, would you like to hear a Aaron Steen tidbit?
I'd love to hear one, mate. What have you got?
I can tell that it's this season with Neek because, as we all know, towards the end of his career, he had that fantastic flat top hairdo. In 86-87, he was actually halfway in between his shaved head and his flat top. I can tell that it's 87 by his haircut.
Gotta love that, mate.
That probably won't make it to the final edit.
Might. You never know. That reminds me of a story you once told me, mate, about how you did something to your own hair at some stage during your schooling years to look like a NBA coach, if I'm not mistaken, a former player. You want to regale us with that story quickly?
Early on in my NBA fandom, one of the early games that I saw and then watched about 1,000 times within the first 12 months of owning it was San Antonio at Chicago from the 90-91 season. A ripper of a game. The Bulls were down by as much as 21 points late in the third term. They lost the game, but needless to say, the fourth quarter was a furious finish.
It was a barn burner, and Jordan hit an absolute dizzying array of highlight moves.
Don't ask me why, but I quite admired the hairline of one Larry Brown on his temples on the side of his head. So I decided that I'd cut my hair like Larry Brown's, only to overcook it a little bit, you might like to say. Cut too much hair off the side of my head and had a massive chunk of hair missing out of the side of my head. I then had to go to school the following day and explain to my schoolmates that a hairdresser had stuffed up my hair.
Didn't you also add a bit of colour, so to speak, in that hairdo?
After I'd taken the chunk of hair off my scone, I then tried a few different ways to cover it up, one of which was Vegemite.
Oh, that's hilarious. I still laugh when I hear that, even though you've told me it before. What were you thinking? Oh, that's just fantastic stuff. The Vegemite kid, Aaron Steen.
Don't ask me why I was so infatuated with Larry Brown's hairline. But anyway, there you go.
I don't even know what to say. Let's just move on.
As reported on February 24th, for their run to the playoffs, coach Doug Collins plans to cut his rotation to 8 players, and at least one starting forward and one starting guard will be on the court at all times. The 2 players off the bench who will be interchangeable depending on offensive or defensive needs are friend of the show Sadal Threet and Elston Turner. Collins admitted that his own expectations for the season have changed, with encouraging play from one of the more surprising teams in the NBA thus far. No longer is a 500 record going to suffice.
In the pick of the 8 games on this date, and we're talking about February 24, Milwaukee held on to win 120-114 in double OT versus the visiting Pacers of Indiana. Terry Cummings, great friend of the show, led the Bucks with 24 points, and for the Pacers, Herb Williams had 28 points and 15 rebounds. Now, Atlanta at Chicago on this date, in front of 17,815, saw the Bulls have a 10-point win, 113-103, and Chicago improved to 27-25. For the Bulls, Jordan had 34 points and 12 rebounds, which was a season high, and 5 steals and 5 blocks. Sadal Threet had 21 points in just 19 minutes, and for Sadal, that was a season high for him as a Chicago Bull. He was traded to Chicago on New Year's Eve of 1986. Now for Atlanta, Dominique had 22 points and 7 rebounds, Randy Whitman 20 points, and Kevin Willis 18 points and 8 rebounds.
If Michael Jordan keeps soaring like this, Doug Collins may have to ban him from practice for the rest of the season, wrote Bob Sakamoto. After missing the last 2 practices with a bruised right hand, Jordan had turned in 2 of his most complete games for the season, this one before a standing room only crowd at Chicago Stadium. Collins said that Jordan will like hearing that his great play had been because he had missed 2 practices. He's rested, added Doug. Collins said he planned to rest his guys that had played 40 minutes in the game, including Oakley, who was carrying a minor groin pull.
Don't touch that, literally.
The team responded to a pre-game challenge by their coach to out-rebound the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA. It helps that Hawks starting center Trey Rollins had his playing time pruned to only 6 minutes as he returns from injury.
I really like that. If you hadn't already guessed by my reaction, good to see you branching out. Keep going, mate.
Collins planned to let friend of the show, Sedale Blade Threat, shoot himself into oblivion as the reserve guard showed innate confidence in his game to return his best game as a Bull. Hawks coach and friend of the show, Mike Fratello, was impressed with the play of friend of the show, Threat, and friend of the show, Mike Brown, off the bench for the Bulls.
Hilarious. At this point, it's almost beyond just saying what episode number these people are on. But just rest assured, they are all great friends of the show.
In other Bulls news, Jordan and Collins were to be guests at a Cranes luncheon to be televised before the Bulls' upcoming game against New Jersey. It was at this point that I Googled Cranes Chicago to find it is a Chicago-based business newspaper and not the variety that sits atop a building or the bird which inhabits all continents across the world aside from Antarctica and mysteriously South America. The highlight of the luncheon was a mother who rose to praise Jordan for his recent appearance on 60 Minutes and his ability to take care of domestic duties around the house. It gave the mother ammunition to get her kids to do chores around the house because MJ does.
That's fantastic, mate. That's referring to that footage of Jordan where you can see him vacuuming. Now, returning to games on the 24th, at Denver, Fat Lever registered his 12th triple-double of the season as the Nuggets extinguished the Rockets 134-105. Fat's numbers: 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 13 assists. And in the LA Lakers 97-93 win at Phoenix, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hit his first ever three-point shot. For those interested, this highlight is on YouTube and will appear in the show notes. Our leading individual scorer from the 4 games on this date was Larry Joe Bird. He blazed a trail, igniting for 43 points versus Portland inside the friendly confines of Boston Garden.
And a little Bulls tidbit, Adam. The last time that a Bulls team was at 500 this late into the season was the 80-81 season.
That is a good stat there, mate. On the 26th, after a 22-34 start to the season, Phoenix GM Jerry Colangelo said that, quote, "The time has come for a change," end quote, announcing that the team had fired John McLeod as coach. Former son, Dick Van Arsdale, a then radio and TV analyst for the team, was named interim coach. McLeod had been the longest tenured active coach in the NBA, becoming head man on March 30th of 1973. Van Arsdale would guide the Suns to a 14-12 record, and the team would go 36-46 overall. Thanks to basketballreference.com, I learned that the 1988 Suns would be led by John Wetzel, not sure how you pronounce that, sorry John if you're listening, who played with Phoenix for 2 seasons in the early 1970s. 1988 would be Wetzel's sole season as head coach, and he went 28-54. He'd continue to coach at the assistant level through the 2004 NBA season. Now, New Jersey at Chicago in front of 14,098 saw the Bulls have a 15-point win, 128-113, and move to 28-25 on the year. For Chicago, Jordan had an unbelievable scoring performance with 58 points and 8 rebounds. Oakley had 12 points, 17 boards, and 7 assists, and Dave Corzine 12 points and 10 rebounds. For New Jersey, Buck Williams 25 points, Orlando Woolridge 20 points and 6 boards, and the G-man Mike Jaminski 14 points and 13 rebounds.
With 2:44 remaining in the game, Jordan looked over at Doug Collins and asked to come out of the game. The 14,098 patrons at the stadium would have loved to have seen Jordan drop 60 or maybe 70, but Jordan said he had played well and wanted his teammates to get some run. In the game, Jordan set records for single-game scoring by a Bull, beating Chet the Jet Walker's 56 in 1972, the season high in the NBA for 86-87, beating Dominique's 57 set against the Bulls on December 10, and the third highest free throw attempts in a half and in a game with 13 and 27 respectively. The Bulls won their third straight and 6th in 8 games, and Jordan added that his appearances and endorsements have quietened off, allowing him to get extra rest for the stretch run of the season. In a cool tidbit from the game, Nets coach Dave Wall, who was actually ejected from the game in the second quarter, gave his New Jersey Nets team a spray at halftime and kicked them out of the locker room. The Nets players ended up sitting on the Bulls bench watching the halftime entertainment on the court.
Yeah, he must have given him a fair spray to actually kick him out of the locker room. Imagine being a fly on the wall, hearing that little... Back to games on the 26th. Manute the Magnificent Bol recorded a stat line for the ages. He had 15 blocked shots, which matched his career high, and also pulled down a career high 19 rebounds, plus added 10 points, as his Washington Bullets hosted and defeated the Indiana Pacers 100-94.
15 blocks and 19 rebounds. That's a very, very unique stat line for starters. Hashtag Rudy Love.
Which gets back to Jeff Ruland, who's a great friend of the show and former guest, equaling a career high in blocks and setting a career high in rebounds in the one game. So an outstanding effort there from Manute. For what it's worth, mate, Elmore Smith holds the all-time record for most blocks in a single NBA game, and he played with the LA Lakers in the 74 season, having an astounding 17 rejections. And Shaquille O'Neal and Manute are tied for equal second all-time with 15. Also on this date, the San Antonio Spurs' Alvin Roberston hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to give his Spurs a remarkable 96-94 victory over Sir Charles Barkley's Philadelphia 76ers. On the 27th of February, hosting Indiana, the New Jersey Nets were 125-115 winners. Buck Williams scored a career-high 35 points. So good stuff there from Charles Linwood Williams. Now, on the 28th, mate, the last day of this span that we're covering, Milwaukee at Chicago in front of a great crowd, 18,122, saw the Bulls hold on for a 107-104 win. They improved to 4 games above 500, otherwise known as 29-25. And for Chicago, Jordan had 37 points and 6 rebounds, Charles Oakley 20 points and 15 boards, and Dave Corzine 15 points and 7 assists. For Milwaukee, Terry Cummings, episode 17, great friend of the show, had 23 points and 8 rebounds. Paul Pressey, 21 points. John Lucas, 17 points. And Ricky Pierce, another great friend of the show, episode 28, had 13 points. It's out of control, mate, this shameless self-promotion.
3 quarters of a tenacious Bucks defense held Air Jordan at bay before MJ scored 17 points in the fourth to get the Bulls their 4th straight win in front of a national TV audience. When Jordan picked up his 3rd foul in the second term, Oakley, friend of the show, Blade Threet, and podcast favourite Dave Corzine ensured that Jordan's rest wasn't an anxious one. The Bulls trailed 90-84 early in the fourth before an 11-2 run sparked by Jordan. It remained close throughout the term until another 6-0 run by Chicago brought it to 104-98 with 1:41 to go in the fourth quarter. Corzine was the key in this run with a big assist, steal, and a dive on the floor for a loose ball to maintain possession for the Bulls.
Just imagine, mate, if we can land Dave Corzine on the show. He's already a podcast favourite, but if he becomes a guest and a great friend of the show, I'm not even too sure what's going to happen. The world might implode.
It'd be something akin to the fall of the Berlin Wall, Adam.
Wasn't expecting that. Well, that's tremendous. Dale Ellis. Do I even say it? Oh, why? What the heck? Great friend of the show was the NBA's single-game high scorer on this date, dropping an even 40 points at Phoenix in the Supersonics 112-105 victory. Let's round things out, mate. Our NBA Player of the Month for February was Michael Jordan, unsurprisingly, based on the stats we've been reeling off. 38.4 points, 5.4 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 3.7 steals, and 2.4 blocks per game, as Chicago went 8-4 for the month of February. Now, Coach of the Month in February was Mike Schuler. In his first season as Portland's head man, led the team to a 9-4 mark. For our Players of the Week, February the 15th was Magic Johnson of the LA Lakers. 27.3 points, 11.3 rebounds, 10.7 assists and 2 steals per game as the Lakers went 1-2. And on February the 22nd, Moses Malone of the Washington Bullets, 30.5 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 assists per game as the Bullets went 3-1. So good stuff there from Moses and his Washington Bullets. The individual highs in points, Michael Jordan had 58 versus the New Jersey Nets on the 26th of February. Rebounds, we had 3 guys had 20 rebounds apiece. Michael Cage of the LA Clippers, Caldwell Jones of Portland, and Larry Mr. Mean Smith of Golden State Warriors. And as previously covered, Nate McMillan of the Seattle Supersonics had 25 assists versus the LA Clippers on the 23rd of February. Now, NBA standings through February 28th, mate. Let's wrap it up. Division leaders were in the Atlantic, Boston were 37 and 12. In the Central, Atlanta and Detroit were tied at 31 and 16. In the Midwest, Dallas was 31 and 17. And in the Pacific, the Lakers were 37 and 12. The Bulls were 29 and 25, so they were tracking along quite nicely at this stage. They went 5 and 2 in this span, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, actually it wasn't at Philadelphia, but the LA Clippers had a record of 8 and 40. Thanks again for being a part of the show, mate. Anything you'd like to add there before we do say goodbye?
A big shout out to your mum, my mum, and Bitumen Roads for the 15,501 downloads of the NB87 series. Giddy up.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show and share my web address with your friends and colleagues, inallairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter at inallairness. Please add your like to the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show.
In a cool tidbit from the game, Nets coach David Wall. Why have I called him David? I do not know.